and this session is being recorded. Delighted to welcome everybody to the session today. Lovely to see so many people here. Lovely to see people dialing in and from where you're dialing in from. If you haven't said hello, please do say hi in the chat, just so we know where you're calling in from. It's just really useful to get a sense of where our audience are. Delighted, like I said, to be able to present Molly and Nuri from Saffron Interactive with how to leverage AI to become a skills-based organisation. I've seen your presentation. I've also seen a really cool video which you guys have got. I'm really looking forward to this. So, Molly, Nuri, I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It was a fantastic introduction, as always. Um, so I hope you're all well and have had a fantastic day so far. Thank you so much for joining us for this session on becoming a skills-based organisation. Because there's a piece of data that says that over half of business leaders are worried about future talent shortages. And so, what is clear is that traditional approaches are no longer enough. So, today we're going to explore how, by embracing skills based strategies powered by AI, your organization can overcome these challenges. Before we get going, let's do a little bit of a brief introduction. I'm Molly. I'm a performance consultant at Saffron. And during my time in the industry, I've worked with clients of all different shapes and sizes, from large global mining organizations to councils and not for profits. And over that time, and something at the heart of what we do at Saffron, is the real passion that I've developed for helping organizations, just like you here today, change your people's behavior to boost performance. And I'm here with Nuri.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Nuri Sarzan, and I'm a director at Saffron. My background is in consulting. So prior to joining Saffron, I was a partner at KPMG, leading their people services division in London and Eastern counties. And I've also been in-house, so I've held global roles at BP and regional roles at Lendlease. But at Saffron, I bring hopefully that consulting experience to our clients, and hopefully also the learning community. Molly.
Fabulous. All righty. Let's get going then. So, as we sort of alluded to just now, at Saffron, we work really closely with L&D leaders across a range of industries. But no matter what industry we talk to, one theme keeps coming up. We are facing a skills crisis, and it's only getting more urgent. And the talent shortage isn't something that's new. We've all seen various different McKinsey forecasts about 2030 skills cliffs, etc. But what's alarming is that even with all that awareness and all of that talk, the action doesn't seem to have caught up. And it's not just about unfilled vacancies, it's a real shortage in skills, not necessarily people. We are stuck with outdating hiring practices, rigid training models, and L&D strategies that don't reflect the pace of change. So today, that's why we're here to talk to you about AI and how using it intelligently can help close that gap and accelerate your journey to becoming a skills-based organization. So today we're going to cover the business case. Why now? The forces that are driving that change and the consequences of inaction. Then we're going to start exploring what we really mean by a skills based organisation and start putting together a strategy to achieve it. And then they're bringing in where AI can make a difference practically and responsibly. And then how we can start using data insights to measure the success, impact, and drive results. So let's start diving in and unpack what that looks like in the real world. Which we're going to kick off with a poll, I think.
Yes. So, yeah, before we get properly stuck in, let's understand where you think your organization is right now. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind using that poll function to define your organization. Yes, no, we're getting there, we need help, or what is a skills-based organization in the first place? You can see, oh, there is
Mm,
really needing help or getting there is brilliant.
mm. Got a
I've
couple of
opened the
people
poll
who
up.
are
We've got the live
yes.
results. Yeah,
Mm.
I love seeing the live results going up and down as people start putting them in.
Yeah.
So everybody in the room, please do. About half nearly everybody's completed it, actually. That's pretty good. If you haven't, please do tell us what your thoughts are. I like the fact that 3 people are completely honest and said, what is a skills-based organisation, which I think is really good. So I think that in terms of that, we need to tell people what we mean by that first of all. So Molly,
Mm.
Nuri, if one of you could
Yeah.
just explain that in the first instance, will be good.
Sure, I'm happy to. So, a skills-based organization is really sort of getting away with looking at job roles and really looking at, you know, a skills-first approach. So, it's really looking at what skills are required in every department rather than necessarily looking at job roles. And it might not even be every department. It might actually be, depending on the type of organization, it might be, well, for us to win this piece of work or for us to be able to do this project, what combination of skills do we actually need? And how can we then match the skills that the people have in order to actually either win that project or actually make sure it's completed to the best it can be and within the required timelines? So it's really sort of looking not so homogeneously at departments and requirements, but really looking at who within the organization is best equipped with the skills that they have to do the things that we need now, and then also looking at what skills are needed in the future and how we're going to get the people there. And
Mm.
it might also look even closer than that to say who is more likely to be able to achieve those skills, because it might not be in that original rigid structure and hierarchy that you currently have. So what it really is doing is turning organizations almost upside down and looking at what is needed where in order to pursue revenue goals or to pursue innovation goals or to pursue creativity. So it's goal orientated and outcomes biased, and then looking at what inputs in terms of skills are really required. So it's quite
I love that.
quite a major upset, really.
I love that description. Thank you, Neil. That's a really good description. For people here, I have put a link into Deloitte. They talking about skills-based organisations is about 2022 off the top of my head. Um, uh, Thank you. That's a really good description. I just want a quick check. Are you surprised by the results, guys? I'm just looking at the list that's here. Are you surprised by the spread across the people in the room?
I think it's so positive that 40% are getting there and that, some action has actually started. And, whoever that 40% are, you're ahead of the curve because
Mm.
everything that we're reading in terms of research is saying that people are actually behind the curve. So the fact that you've actually already started is, I think, a huge accolade to you guys. So well done for
Mm.
doing that. The fact also that others recognize it's a problem and need help to get there or are sort of working through what it means for their organization, I think is good. The trouble, I think, is that you can stay there for a very long time.
Mm.
And
It's but quite simply because you described it yourself. What are the future skills that need to be there? I'm doing an
Mm.
enormous piece of work with an large organisation, and everything is all about the skills that we used to have and the skills we got now, and trying to help people understand, well, what will the skills look like in 18 months, 2 years, 3 years,
Yeah.
5 years time look like? And it's that forward thinking is always the challenge. So it is that you could make the argument that it's a Sisyphean task that you're constantly always going to have to be driving and moving towards it. It's a interesting challenge.
absolutely. And I think for those people who are getting there or we need help, what is it that is actually, what are your pain points? If you can pop those into the chat, then what we can try and do is address those because we've got a small
Mm.
enough group here to really get down into the nitty-gritty,
Mm.
if that would be helpful to you. So, please feel free to kind of put in the chat what help you need or what the pain points are currently that you're finding
Yeah.
really difficult to get over.
Yeah.
I'm going to change the layout and put it back to the normal chat for everybody because I don't want to lose the where people might want to put the things in. So I'll just put it back to that layout again. Please do use the chat and put your if you have got pain points, please include them in there, because it'll be really interesting. I think Nori and Molly and me, I'd just be really interested in work finding out. You know, this is a place where we can help each other.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Fabulous. That's really interesting question. Thank you, guys. I'll come off. You don't need to hear me anymore.
Alrighty.
Yes, I was just going to say, if anyone has got any specific pain points, we can try and address those. But what we've heard mostly from individuals is essentially making that business case. So Molly's going to potentially talk to you about how to do that.
I hope so. Alrighty. So, before we start really building a practical business case, let's get a bit of an understanding of where we are as a sector. And I'm sure a lot of you already know a lot of these things. But fundamentally, why are me and Nuri talking to you about this today? Why now? Well, as I mentioned earlier, and as I'm sure many of you know, this topic isn't new. And if you felt stuck in a bit of Groundhog Day in the same conversations year after year, then you are certainly not alone. The numbers haven't shifted because many organizations haven't shifted. A lot of you guys here seem to be ahead of the curve, as Nuri just said. But for many, if they're going to catch up, then pioneering a different approach is absolutely critical. This isn't just a HR problem. This is a real business imperative. What's missing is the capabilities that are required to meet the business objectives and to remain agile in that ever-shifting landscape. Because the shortage isn't just in numbers of people or bods on seats, it's in readiness. And studies show that 62% of organisations are already facing skill shortages. And whilst the size and nature of those shortages do vary, the effects are widespread. So in the short term, businesses are overwhelmingly reporting that the main impacts of skill shortages are on increased pressure on existing employees and their ability to service work. And in the long term, 77% of leaders believe that a lack of skills is seriously impacting business productivity, which is critical because productivity equals revenue. So if we as people professionals are going to remain in that seat with the C-suite that we fought so hardly to achieve, then we need to be able to address and solve business problems. And that means it's increasingly critical for us to maximize employee productivity. And so as businesses evolve, it's addressing that deficit that's going to be crucial and is absolutely critical. But solving that challenge is going to demand a new approach. One that Nori touched on earlier, that's prioritizing skills over credentials. And I think the issue is that traditional hiring and workforce development approaches are no longer sufficient in addressing that gap. So what can we do to solve it? Now, the solution, as Nuri was chatting about earlier, lies in that strategic pivot away from roles and vacancies and towards skills and capability. It doesn't necessarily always mean a full tearing up of the rule book and of an organizational structure, but it's rewiring how you think about workforce potential. So I think it may actually be the article that Andrew's linked in the chat, but Deloitte described that as a decoupling of work from jobs. So rethinking traditional job descriptions and focusing instead on what people can do. And that's what's going to enable agility and improve responsiveness to disruption. So what does that shift need to involve? Well, we need to stop chasing talent and start building it. A skills-based strategy helps organizations develop your internal talent pipelines rather than competing for external talent or not having the talent and the skills that you need. And that by expanding your talent pool through a hiring approach that is more skills-based, you can focus on competencies rather than credentials. And that can help unlock hidden talent and broaden workforce options. And that again can help embed greater workforce flexibility and agility. Those skills-based approaches enables employees to transition more easily between roles and adapt to changing business needs. And by prioritizing skills development, we're seeing higher engagement, retention, and performance, which as a result can improve that innovation and productivity of our people as well. And again, building that retention and improving morale of people, as well as better alignment with business objectives. A skills first strategy ensures that your workforce capabilities are directly tied to your business outcomes rather than being separate entities. So let's have a little pause again and see. I kind of laid down a little bit of some of the elements that go back into creating a skills based approach. But for people who are maybe nearly there, not there at all, or maybe even some advice from the people who are there already and would define yourselves as a skills based organization, what is the most challenging aspect about putting this into practice?
I've opened up another chat
Mm,
window for everybody, so please feel free to stick your comments in there. I think
mm,
there's some really interesting stuff on your previous slide. Let me just go back to it.
mm,
These 6 issues I think are
mm.
so important. I put the question is at the top there. What are you finding most challenging about putting this into practice? Please do tell us in the large chat box I've just opened up.
I
But I
think
think these
Elaine's
six,
comment is interesting as well, sort of that she's put in the chat.
yeah,
So her challenge is that business areas not coming on the journey read transferable skills and having a
yeah,
fixed
yeah,
mindset on
yeah,
skills.
yeah. There's something that I mean, I remember this when I worked in the civil service. This idea of, you worked in a profession and you stayed in that profession and that was your lane and you didn't switch lanes,
Mm,
kind of thing. You were legal or you were HR, kind of thing. And there is something to do with labeling, that we like those
mm,
labels, I think, which is one issue I think we've got within organisations. This is my response to a label: you can't fix modern problems with traditional skills, and that's one of the issues. We need to think differently about this. And I love her comment back at me is that there are some core skills which arguably are transferable, but we seem to want to just label them in this one area. And
mm.
I'm really interested in people's thoughts on this. We've got a couple of comments in here.
Yeah.
Naru saying changing mindset to a new way.
Mm.
Is it just a mindset thing that we have with managers? I'm interested. Molly, Nuri, what do you think? Is it a mindset?
I think the difficulties that we've seen within organizations is definitely a mindset issue. It's also complex, right?
Mm,
Organizations have different departments who value potentially different things, and all of that's fine because that is how they have been successful to date. The question really is putting into their minds, and this is where the mindset issue is: brilliant, you've been successful to date. What's going to take that success in the future? So, what elements are you then going to need in the future? And I think Elaine's right as well, because there are certain core skills that we're all going to need, those essential skills. And I think that where you get traction is by sort of having, if you like, that universal element first of all, and then taking that forward. So yes, I think those essential skills are things that everyone's going to need within an organization. So it's a good place to start. Um, and what you want at the end of the day is to start taking action, and then you'll be surprised how many others will start to follow because they see that this is a new way of working and that there is benefit. And once that starts getting impetus within the organization, then others will want to follow. So
mm,
I think that's
mm.
what we've seen in practice.
I've just moved that comment from Jason into the wider chat as well, because I think you've actually picked out 3 really interesting elements in there, Jason. So we're talking about the most challenging about putting this into practice. You've spoken about organisational design, so the structural elements and how the organisation is designed is one. The second one I think is absolutely critical. It's the culture and that evolution of culture within the organisation. And the third one I think you've described beautifully is that people can't see the benefit of it. And I
Mm,
think, like you say, that was a brilliant comment, Jason. Those 3 not being at the source of change, why should anybody care? And people can't see a
mm.
value behind it. I think that's a really insightful comment.
Watch this
Yeah, and I
space because I think
yeah.
that's we're gonna I'm hoping we're gonna help solve that one for Jason today in terms of what we're sharing. I think it's a really really big one, and I think there's lots of stuff out there that can help build the why behind
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. I can see there's a couple of people still typing. I'm going to close this window down shortly. Natalie,
Mm.
just so you know, I'm going to take your question. I'm going to put your question into the chat here, because I'm really interested as well. I think it would be really nice if we could find out from people. So I've just pasted your question into the main chat, so when we close this window down, we don't lose it. And yeah, Dan, interesting point, Dan. Thank you for joining us again. You were here
Mm.
earlier. I think people would balk at the flexibility of work ID remuneration. Exactly the same. I'm having, like I said, I'm working with a large organisation in the UK and talking about flexible contracts with them.
Mm.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, that's hard work. No, everybody has to have the same contract because, if we work out aside from that, how do we scale it? And then that's one of the challenges we've got on there. Thank you for your comments, everybody. I'm going to close that window back down again. Again, if you want to have a look at what anybody said, you can do that in the replay or the video recording of it. And please do answer Natalie's question: how are people implementing this in practice, and how do you do the mindset issues? If you've got any answers, please do put them in the chat for Natalie, because again, it's the
Mm.
wisdom of the crowd. If you have an answer, please put it in there. I'll change the layout back again, and back to you, Molly.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you, guys. That was really, really helpful and really insightful. And as I say, I'm hopeful we're going to answer and debunk some of these things as we go. But I think, sort of reflecting on that, much of it outlines on our ability to build and communicate that business case and almost turn a ship and change something that just seems like a theory and actually applying it in practice. And often, one of the biggest roadblockers can be the length of time and the perceived effort that these changes can take. And some of the stuff that we're going to go into a little further into the presentation is how to solve that with AI and how to move the ship with AI as our co pilot. Now, before I go any further, um, let's build some of that business case. So, why is a skills based strategy not just a theory? Why does it actually work? Now, it's clear from some of the research that's out there that people who are pioneering approach are seeing the impact and achieving greater results than those with job based practices. So Deloitte that found in their piece of research that they did, and bearing in mind this was back in 2022, so I'm hopeful that things have shifted, but I think it gives us a good benchmark to explore. So in their piece of research, they found that only 19% of organizations had truly embedded a skills-based strategy, but they were outperforming organizations who don't have one in nearly every way that matters, from innovation and retention to inclusivity and process efficiency. So you can see here, they maximize talent and efficiency. By placing people based on their actual skills, not just job titles or degrees, organizations can improve performance and create happier and more engaged employees. It helps uncover hidden talent, increase diversity, and drive better, more innovative decisions. And you're also more likely to retain high performers. And in a talent driven market, people can leave an organization when they don't see a future. They don't see those development opportunities. But skills based organizations offer that flexibility, they offer those varied opportunities, and they provide a clear path for growth. So people don't feel boxed in into rigid job roles. They're free to stretch, develop, and stay long term, and organizations are able to respond to change faster, because as we've been chatting about this entire time, these skills that are in demand today might not be the skills that you need tomorrow, but skills first organizations can use tools like talent mapping in order to understand what's in their workforce now and where people can add value next, making it much easier to shift those talent and those people and the priorities when things change. And this can also really improve the candidate and employee experience. So 90% of candidates say they're more likely to land their dream job when they feel like they're being hired based on their skill set rather than their CV. And that's a really powerful way to open doors and build a workplace where people feel valued for what they can do and not just what's written on paper. And that can really manifest itself in terms of results as well. So that final stat on the slide here is from Unilever. They did a project in which they entered into a skills-based strategy, and they deployed skills to business critical projects via an internal marketplace. And for them, this unlocked 700,000 hours of capacity and boosted productivity by 41%. So in just 6 months, they had reskilled people into completely different roles and areas. And that is the power of thinking a little bit differently and shifting a ship like Unilever and pivoting an approach and really seeing the results of that. So, what we can see is that there's a theory and it's solid, but the implementation is often where people get stuck. So, we've put together a little bit of a framework and a structure, beginning with some insights, then rethinking how you hire and promote, followed by providing people with real support, and then using data to ensure that the investment and the time that you're spending pays off. So, step one is to prioritize those skills and not job titles. So, rethinking how skills are defined so that job roles matter less and there's less of the value presented over being called a certain thing or having a certain thing on your CV. It's about what you do that matters. And so then you can begin to understand the landscape of the organization, determining where your focus needs to be. Is it essential, functional, or technical skills? And often, as Elaine was talking about earlier, starting with essential skills is important because every job is going to need those now and into the future. Engineers, yes, some of their elements of the technical role might be automated, but the essential skills, the people skills, the listening skills, the leadership skills, those will always be critical. And once you know what you need, it's essential to then understand and identify the critical gaps, using analytics and self assessment to surface where your strengths are and identify the missing skills so that you can fill them. And that's when you can then start to embed and enable personalized learning that really does plug those gaps, providing learning pathways that are aligned to real goals for individuals and for the business. And then the next stage is to bolster that learning by integrating coaching and support that wraps around pieces of learning to create a fully holistic experience and not just a series of standalone courses. So this is teaching people, giving people the power to take action. So we're empowering our people, not just teaching them. And last but not least, it's that measuring and that iteration that is critical. So using real-time data to improve continuously. And it's these 5 simple steps that can really start help to build that progress from just theory to practice and taking action towards building a skills-based approach. And it can feel and seem pretty daunting, but it doesn't need to be. And that is where, as I alluded to earlier, AI can potentially help accelerate that journey. So I'm going to hand over to Nuri now.
Thanks, Molly. So what can AI do in terms of really helping you get onto that journey? Well, really, it's that force multiplier. And you can see that from Workday's recently issued report from 2025, so this year, it looks like the previous fear that AI will replace people is starting to ease. And whilst many jobs will become automated, it's those organizations and individuals who have the skills to leverage AI to make themselves better, more efficient, and more productive that will thrive in the future of work. And that change in attitude is shown here in the quote from Workday's report. So 83% believe AI will support the development of new skills and, more importantly, elevate the importance of human skills and enhance creativity. So, that enablement is really starting to be heard and really sort of taken in. So how can actually AI help? Well, it really can accelerate identifying those critical skills gap and accelerate mapping of your workforce's current state. So then you can know what the difference is between the now and the future state. And this is the first place that companies get stuck because it's going to be different, as we said, between departments, regions, business streams, or different brands. It's messy, it's really complicated, and that's really how AI can bring that clarity to the situation, and it can do it quickly. And And as I said before, if this is the case in your organization with either mindset or getting others on board, starting off with those essential skills, as Elaine pointed out as well, is really important to help build that momentum. And then the rest can be done with other strategies. So the other strategies might involve, for example, reverse engineering and looking at your actual job descriptions and playing backwards. Well, what skills are actually required to do those jobs, and will those jobs then actually exist in the future? So that reverse engineering is very doable through AI, and that can obviously map a whole organization's uh, skills levels relatively quickly in terms of what the needs are. And then again, you can use AI to map where the current skills actually lie. And a key statistic here as part of your business case is that organizations that do leverage AI to map workforce skills are 63% more likely to achieve business outcomes faster. And that's also part of that Deloitte report that we've been referring to in the course of this presentation. So the key here is really start with those essential skills and map your workforce to them. The next thing is that it really is a lot more accurate because it takes away the emotion and it analyzes things more critically. And it's shown to be more accurate as well in research. And then we all know that the level of personalization that can then come about using AI to map not only skills, but also then identify the goals, the learning needs, and really provide a frictionless, line of sight to an individual in terms of what they need to do, and then be able to be coached towards that particular element. And that clear line of sight really reduces anxiety and it makes people feel in control, so they're more likely to want to learn and develop. And that in itself then drives accountability because learning and development shouldn't be top down. All of this tracks progress, it flags issues before they escalate, and they are given, if you like, your workforce is given their own driving seat for taking action. And that's really how you start changing the culture of the organization to becoming a continuous improvement culture, a continuous learning culture. And people then start seeing learning and improving skills as an integral part of their own role, and for them to actually start making time for it. And all of this, really, the biggest thing that it does is unlock mobility. A true skills-based organization who's really looking at what skills are needed and who's best to actually provide that is going to put real diversity into the workforce. So getting the best outcomes with the different perspectives and that is needed with what people can do, and it's not based on seniority and prior experience, really provides that fluidity that people are looking for in resources. So what might that actually look like then? Well, to help people, we've looked at really what is it that are the pain points for L&D and HR and business professionals, and that's how we've come to develop ADA. So what you can see here is that it's personalized, it's AI powered, but it's coaching. It's not a content repository that pushes static content. ADA is really dynamic, it's real-time coaching, and it takes people through their own personalized development journey, helping them apply skills and not just consume information. So it's skills first, and it's not role-based. And here you can see that that driving of recommendations is based on everything that is actually being collected in terms of data. And then obviously it provides that personalization at scale. It's fully aligned to your own tax or skills taxonomy, which also might change within your departments and within your regions. So it's fully flexible enough to do that. And also it can integrate with your existing software. So it's not something that is you know, strip out what you've got and start again. It really wraps around what you've got already, enhancing and making more of the learning and the things that you have at your own disposal already. So what might that look like? I'm just going to ask Andrew to run the video here, and I'm going to talk over the video, but first of all, I'm going to show you that it is an end-to-end journey. So as you can see here, an individual getting onto this platform is going on their own personal journey. So first of all, they're going to meet their digital coach, they're going to get to know each other, and that's going to be a discursive, a reflective conversation. You're going to evaluate your own skills. That is then going to be matched with the learning that you need to do, but more than that, it's going to enable you to take action. So just moving on, you can, and this will go on for a few minutes now. You can see what a conversation might actually look like for Jordan.
Hello, I'm Ada, your career coach. We'll explore your skills, set goals, and create a plan just for you. Follow my prompts, and we'll progress together. You can call me anytime you need some help. Let's get started. Developing your skills can really boost your confidence and job satisfaction. Is developing your skills important to you?
I know it's important to do so, but I'm not that good at carving out the time.
Don't worry, we can work on that. So, what gets in the way of developing your skills? Is it lack of time, motivation, or something else?
Well, I'm really busy at work and home and just have lots of different commitments.
I totally get it. Life can get pretty hectic. It sounds like you've got a lot on your plate. Do you feel like you know your skill strengths and growth areas?
I'm aware of my strengths and weaknesses, but one specific area I need to improve on is my approach to people management.
People management can be tough, but it's great that you're aware of it. Do you think that developing your skills, especially in people management, will help your future career prospects?
Yeah, I definitely think it could help.
That's a great attitude to have. Now, let's talk about commitment. How committed are you to developing your skills by training? Awesome. It sounds like you're really motivated to develop your skills. Before we move forward, is there anything you'd like to change or add to your previous answers? Thanks for allowing.
So as you can see there, what Jordan has is a personalized conversation with Ada about what his barriers and challenges are, what he knows about himself already, or what he's figured out for himself already, and can also respond in a multitude of ways. So using voice as a WhatsApp type ability to realize that. Ada obviously responds very in a nuanced way back to Jordan. And there's also, text-based, the ability for text to be used. And also there's some recommendations where individuals want to go through the experience a little bit more quickly, or they're on the bus, or whatever. So this is also fully mobile. One thing to note is that Ada herself, in terms of character, can change to whatever kind of character that you want, that may be appropriate to the demography that you're using. And similarly, it's the same in terms of translations. So all of this can be done in English as well as other languages.
Allowing me to get to know you. Move on to the skills assessment so that you can discover where your strengths lie and what skills you need to develop.
So you can see here that all the skills are those essential skills plus the digital skills. And you get an element of understanding about what that assessment is for. It's also quite behavioral in here. So it's more about what do you actually do in terms of, these steps, as we call them. And this is from the Universal Skills Builder framework. So it is covering all of those essential skills, but it's also allowing you to see what mastery would look like. The reward then is really an output in different forms that you can actually explore. And then it tells you, once you've done all of them, how those are really analysed in a lot of detail. And it's here that people might actually want to talk again to Ada, which can be done. So moving onwards, once those skills have been identified, it's really about then mapping those skills to whatever training is available within your own LMS. So we're not creating content here, but what we're really doing is mapping what's there already against the skills. And as you can see here, at the moment, we've mapped to a different framework called Allison. So Jordan wanted leadership skills in particular, and he's identified his growth areas. He can pick which ones he wants to do, find out a little bit more about them, and actually launch them from here if he so wants as well. But the idea then is to, having identified, first of all, what you need, and then you, with autonomy, picked what you want, you can then start actually putting that into practice with your action plan. And this is obviously where people find making smart goals really, really difficult in organizations. And this covers managers as well as individuals themselves creating their goal. So from all of the conversations, the skills assessment, everything that's actually gone on to the platform, including what you've actually pinned or hearted as something that you would like to do, Ada can actually help you create a SMART goal, either through talking you through it in the Guide Me button, or automatically generating it where it can suggest what you might like to do. So here it is about to suggest, and it usually does this within a few seconds. And obviously you can pick those goals, you can edit them, and then the critical thing here is that's a very big goal. So what are the small actions, again, that you need to complete those? Now, we don't want to divorce the managers from nurturing their workforce or their teams. So as a manager, you get an overall progress dashboard for your team. And this can go into some detail. And the detail is not just about all of the activities that they've performed, as you've seen already, but more importantly, it tells you about how the individual's feeling. And this sentiment analysis, based on what the individual has been inputting in the platform, can really give a manager a real sort of real-time insight into how that individual is feeling. And you can see that they will, they get a real breakdown and understanding of that individual's strengths, but also then as a team where their strengths and growth areas lie. So then workforce planning is easier. And again, there's deeper insights that a manager can get in terms of specific answers that have been allowed by the individual to be known to the manager. And obviously all of this comes with nudges, with notifications. So if goals and actions are being missed, then the manager is also sent an alert, but also the individual is reminded about them in advance of hitting those deadlines. And this sort of combination of human intervention plus AI has really helped organizations to move forward in terms of not only identifying their skills and where they are, but also in creating that culture of continuous learning within individuals, because they've got that clear line of sight. Okay.
Alrighty. So now Nuri's shown you what ADA looks like. What does the data show? What are the results and outcomes that are possible? Now, the results from our ADA pilot demonstrate the direct impact that this style of AI-powered skills development can have on addressing talent deficits. Over 4 months, 500 users engaged with the platform, spending more than 50,000 minutes on targeted upskilling and career development. But beyond just engagement, the results show real transformation. 79% of users successfully completed their action plans, and confidence in career progression soared from 36 to 92%. And using that more structured, skills-based approach, feelings of control over career growth and development rose from 50 to 65%. And concerns about future development dropped dramatically from 37% to 10%. And crucially, 90% of participants discovered development opportunities that they'd never previously considered, proving that AI-enabled skills-first strategies don't just solve immediate gaps, but they actually open up long-term development and new pathways. So this data shows firsthand how these strategies can deliver results by shifting away from traditional job-based learning and leveraging an AI-driven skills coaching approach. You can ensure that your workforce is continuously evolving, engaged, empowered, and equipped to meet the challenges of the future. But whenever you're seeking to embed that organizational transformation, yes, the business is one thing, but it's important to recognize and respond to the user experience, because at the end of the day, if the business is telling people to do something, the users and the learners need to want to do it as well. So we made significant efforts to address and remove the frustration that's often felt through typical chatbot interfaces, so that we could make sure that we maintain effectiveness and really got that feedback that was good and that people enjoyed, and that it was an experience that people wanted to use and go back to, making something sticky. And so you can see a range of feedback here on the screen. 80% felt it was engaging and supportive, 100% felt it was a positive user experience, and 80% stated they'd be highly likely to recommend the platform to a friend. So all of this is going to contribute to that long-term use and the value that the platform can deliver. And again, that was reflected in the testimonials too. Lots of comments about how easy to use, navigate, clear and understandable the experience was. And I'm not going to read them all out, but it showcases the clear attitudinal and behavioural shifts that this style of approach can deliver, and that critical talent and skills outcomes are possible. And to close us off, I'd like to leave you with this, a little bit of a rhetorical question here, or something that you want to think about. Skills have been spoken about as the currency of the future, but I think from what we've shown here that that's not true. The future is now. And with AI only continuing to accelerate, it really does have the potential to unlock new levels of agility, productivity, and innovation. And by embracing a skills-based strategy that's powered by AI, your organization can remain competitive in the face of the talent deficit. So I guess, how ready are you? Are you ready to take the leap? Are you ready to embrace a skills-first future? Have a little think, see what you think, and please do feel free to share it in the chat and ask any questions to us. And if you're ready to take the leap, that's fantastic. But if you might need a little bit more support, or need to convince the business to take a leap, or want to see what Nuri showed in more detail and be aided for yourself, please do scan the QR code or get in touch with us directly. You're more than welcome to give us a shout or ask any questions now. Thank you so much.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
So let me put the link up on here. So you should be able to scan it. If you can't scan it, there is a link. So have a look at a closer look at ADA 2.0. It's interesting because I remember running a session where you first put Ada out there. It's about a year ago,
Yeah.
possibly, something like that. It's interesting to see how it's gone from where it was to where it is now. One partly
That's
is the
right.
technology's move, but also partly as to what we're expecting the tools to do is now changing. And I think that's really where this is interesting. It's not tool-led anymore. We're actually now thinking about it from a development-led purpose, which I think is the way we have to go. I don't know. It's, I'm it feels to me like the most obvious thing to be doing is to think of it from a development-led rather than a technology-led.
Yeah, absolutely. We when we built this, it was pure human-centered design. So we talked to people from 19 to 65 across all demographies, across the whole country, in designing this. So from users to businesses, to organizations that helped individuals over learning disabilities and learning difficulties as well. So a really wide sort of human-centered design approach was taken. Absolutely.
And going back to the question, I think it was the question that Natalie asked, which nobody's answered in the chat, is how people are implementing this in practice, assuming you can fix the mindset issue. Are you mapping individual skill sets? I think I'm interested in your thinking around this. Is it something that you do on an individual basis? Is it something you have to do on a group basis? How would you suggest people approach it?
Yeah, so this is actually being rolled out in companies workforce wide, because this is seen as essentially democratizing coaching. Senior executives kind of get this one-to-one basis regularly. We're talking with coaching organizations who, even with senior executives, because there's a gap in coaching sessions, this is then filling in between those coaching sessions, if you like. So it's really seen as a tool for the whole organization, and available to everyone, because it really is encouraging people to really seriously think about their skills. So one of the things that's a feature in here is that skill assessment can be changed depending on the organization's needs as well. So it doesn't have to be that particular one. Obviously, we're mapping to resources that organizations already have. So what people are finding is that prior to this, about 81% of their people would go onto their learning management system but never actually launch a course. Whereas what this is doing is enabling, if you like, me as Nuri Sazin to be able to understand, well, what do I really need to do to get to that next level on the things that I personally want to develop, and it's providing me with that very clear line of sight, so I can then go and launch that course, and I can actually start practicing the things that I need to do. And that's the next development in this tool as well, is practicing the learning skill sets through here.
And I think what it also does, and that's really nicely, concisely put, because what I think it also does is it immediately lends itself to, if we think about individual skill sets, it's those future skill sets. As I mentioned early on, we tend to work on what we have and what we have done, but actually you can future focus this. So the opportunity is, how do you make this work? Is you focus on, well, what skills will we need in 12, 18, 24 months time? And I think that's where you will start getting the value conversations with the tool. Even if you don't use the tool, you'll start getting the value conversations around it. And then I think you're in an interesting place to look at the tools that will then support that.
Yeah, and I think, there's a little bit of an algorithm in here as well, in terms of, yes, it's self-assessment. So a lot of people think, well, is that a really good assessment then? But there's a little algorithm in here where if you're going to it through too fast, or there's a pattern, or you're not really paying attention, it will actually understand that and link you up to essentially think about it a little bit more. So you get a little alert that actually
frozen.
Have we lost Nuri?
No, Nuri's there.
Yeah.
You froze
She's
just
back,
for a
she's
moment,
back.
Nuri. You're back. Internet connection in Surrey seems to be losing.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a little nudge, if you like, that
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
tells you that you should be taking this a little bit more seriously than you are. And it just takes the one, from a
Yeah.
behavioral perspective, it just takes one, and people then really start thinking about whether they really do this stuff in their
Yeah.
day-to-day lives. So yeah, really good.
Fabulous. Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Please, in the chat, please do express your thanks to our speakers. I think Nuri and Molly have done a really good job today. Like I said, you've got the links there for if you want to have a closer look at IDA. You've got the slide deck as well. So if you would want to click on the link, you can get a copy of the slides as well. I put Nori's details in for LinkedIn and also Molly's as well. And you've got my details as well. If you want to, you've got the links in the chat. If you want to scroll through the chat quickly, you can open up the links to McKinsey and Deloitte and the Workday report and so on. Please feel free to go through there. Like I said, the recording will be available from tomorrow, and you'll also see what we're doing in future webinars. We should be back on the 19th, but I haven't got a specific person in there yet. We're still working that out as to who that'll be, but we should be back in 2 weeks' time. But it leaves me to say thank you, Nuri. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the doors in a moment and put everybody into the lobby. If you two guys just want to hang on for me, I will stop the recording. But thank you, everybody. Thanks for your contributions, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care now, everybody.
Thank
Take
you so
care.
much.